it's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. James David Erpenbach. He's a native of Tennessee. He attended the University of Tennessee Knoxville, that's where he is now, Knoxville, Tennessee, for a Bachelor of Science in Cell Biology. Then he attended the University of Tennessee Memphis for a Doctor of Dental Surgery. He maintains a general private practice in Knoxville since 1982. You beat me by, I was 87, so you beat me by 5 years, because he feels life is a journey and we should all strive for constant and never-ending improvement. He averages between 125 to 150 hours of continuing education a year. His main focus since 2006 has been in the area of biometric tooth conserving dentistry, where he keeps up with some of the most current worldwide research related to restorative techniques. These studies have helped him develop an understanding and appreciation for the oral systemic link of how the oral health can impact overall health, as related especially to heart attack, stroke, and diabetes. There is a new standard of care emerging that will make dentistry a vital partner with the medical community in prevention and treatment of these issues. He's a founding member of Academy of Biometric Dentistry, teaching mentor for the Alman de la Perry Center for Biometric Dentistry in Salt Lake City, founding member, American Academy of Oral Systemic Health. He has trips to Haiti, Belize, providing dental care. Trip in February was the Texas Institute for Advanced Dental Studies. That's Tim Rainey, isn't it?
That is correct. Another one of my mentors.
All right, and mine too. God, I love Tim Rainey. Providing preventive and operative care for children using hydroaerobrasion, where 85% of work was done without the need for aesthetics. He's a fellow of the International College of Dentists, Pierre Fichard Academy, American Dental Association, and 2nd District Dental Society, Crown Council Dental Organization. I just want to say, I want to start with one thing. A lot of people say, well, at the end of dental school, do you want to specialize in ortho, endo, perio, pedo? And I always remind them, dude, first of all, Pierre Fichard was the first dentist, and he was an MD, and then he started dentistry as a specialty of medicine. The first president of the American Dental Association was an MD who got an honorary degree in dentistry. The current president of the American Dental Association is an MD oral surgeon and a DDS. So orthodontics isn't a specialty of dentistry. Dentistry is a specialty of medicine, and all these other specialties are subspecialties of dentistry. But I don't want to get too off topic. Everyone wants me to ask my guests when they first come on the show, they want me to nail you to the floor. Would James David Erpenbach take the COVID vaccine today? Yes or no?
Yes, I would. I'm not the first in line, but I'm in line. I feel there's some value to it. I think it's a responsibility we kind of have to take care of ourselves for our patients. We do all kinds of stuff in the office to prevent stuff, foggers and air filters and stuff like that. But I think there is some value to it, and I feel it's a responsibility I have to my patients to be covered. So I know some people are against vaccinations and stuff like that, the anti-vaxxers, but I feel there is a need for it, and as a public service, I will take a vaccination so I don't become a spreader.
And then I wanted to ask, just for personal reasons, one of my first, this is going to be like episode 1500. Episode 245 was Dr. Saul Presner, who was the past president of the American Academy of Biomedic. Do you know Saul?
Very much so. Spoke with him last night. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Nice. So my first question, I'm just going to, right out of the gate is, why is biometric dentistry and the oral health systemic link, why is it so controversial in dentistry? You've got to know that biometric dentistry and the oral systemic link are completely controversial.
I personally don't see a problem with it. Biomedic is tooth conserving dentistry, repairing teeth to save them, to keep them to last as long as possible. The best thing we have is the own natural tooth. That should be the template we follow restoring our restorations. So biomimetic means bio, lifelike. Biomimetic is lifelike. We want to follow those, have lifelike restorations. The oral systemic is the body, such as the biofilms, stuff like that, that attack the body. That is another area that we need to address. So I see biomimetic is completely separate from oral systemic, but the bacteria, such as the biofilms, we have in the pockets, those affect the whole entire body. The mouth is part of the body. The biofilms in the mouth affect the ability to take care of diabetes, heart attack, strokes, and diabetes, such as Dr. Brad Bell from AOS. He's a cardiologist in Nashville. Has treated 30,000 people recently for heart attacks and strokes. He follows a protocol that if you follow his protocol, he will guarantee you will not have a heart attack or strokes. Of the 30,000 people he's treated, only one of 30,000 has had a heart attack, and there are 84 when they started with him. He bases his science on inflammation, and that's part of the bacteria in the mouth that causes that inflammation. So there's a close related correlation between the two of them. But I see no conflict between the two of them myself personally.
And a lot of my heroes are biometric dentists. Gary Unterbrink,
Yes.
Didier Dietschy, Pascal
Dietschy,
Magne,
yes.
Urs Bessler, Jeff Roulette, Ray Bertolotti, John Coyce, John Kanka, and you, my man. So no, really, I'm dead serious. Why? Do you think it's just because instead of saying you're a conservative dentist, do you think saying you're a biometric dentist, you changed the name so they wanted their normal name and you renamed something that was romantic to them, or where does this come from?
I think Biomedic Dentistry, unfortunately, it's a difficult name that most people don't understand what it is. Go Biomedic and go, what is that? They have no clue what Biomimetic is. When you break it down, it means bio, life, mimicking. So it's a conservative form of dentistry. I do it because it's, in my mind, it's the proper way to do dentistry. The more we cut down a tooth, as we get later on, Bertolotti has said, the more we cut a tooth down, the more likely we are to have endodontic problems. So we want to conserve the tooth structure. Also, if you cut the tooth down when it comes to replacing that tooth because you use bad materials and bad techniques and it fails, you have less tooth to work with. So it's a tooth conserving. You save more of your tooth. It's what I would choose to have done in my mouth, save more of my good tooth and cut it down to a little stub for production purposes only. So I think it's a good way of doing it.
Okay, I love, adore, and respect you. So these aren't questions from me. These are questions that normal, good dentists say. They say regarding you, they say, I know that guy. He's going to want you to do these huge dang fillings, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do crowns. I don't want to do huge MODBL fillings all day.
Yes,
David.
There's a reference right here. Is that you do a crown, you cut away a lot of good tooth structure. Back before I knew about biomedics, I had fillings that are teeth that I cut down to put a crown on. And I thought, by golly, there's got to be a better way than cutting away a lot of good enamel, especially around the base of the tooth. You cut it away and weaken the tooth. And that's what got me into biomedics. My story is a few years ago, many years ago, they had a technique where they put glass ionomers in the tooth called a sandwich technique in class 2s. You put that down in there, you put your restoration composite on top of it, and go. It's very conservative. But they always failed in the boxes where the problems occur in the box. The reason why they failed is because the materials and techniques they used were not a good science, and there was not a good bond in there. So that got me into biomedics to find a better way of doing stuff based on science. This is all based on science. Yes, you can do large fillings. If you really want to get crazy about it, you can do that. Simone Della Pere does exquisitely fine large stress-reduced composite resins. I don't do that. I usually make a bio base, which is the foundation we use, for a good foundation based on science, and then you put on top of it where you put an onlay, 3/4 crown or something like that, but you save more tooth structure than cut it away. So that's my approach is to biomimetic tooth conserving dentistry. You save more tooth and you cut away, and you get a good foundation.
And it's also, the main takeaway I ever got from religion is treat other people like you want to be treated. I would rather have the smallest filling in the world than the biggest filling in the world. And that was the weird thing about dentistry, which I never understood. Like when I grew up in Kansas, if anybody, half my pedigree were dairy farmers, all that stuff. If they found termites, the size of a BB, they'd cut out a meter of that barn and replace it. Dentists they just like and say, well, let me get out my Captain Hook and see if it's again. Say, nah, it's not. I'm going to let it grow. Come back in 6 months and let me see if it's big enough. And then they get out their Captain Hook and stick it again. And it's like, dang, farmers treat termites 100 times more serious than dentists treat decay. A farmer wouldn't need an Explorer. If he saw a black hole in white enamel, Ray Bertolotti was teaching me to take microabrasion and spray that thing out, and it was in Denton every time. And Tim Rainey, who, shout out to Tim Rainey, gosh darn, my son, moved to Beeville, Texas with his wife and my 4 grandkids. He took 2/3 of my grandkids, 4 out of 6 of my grandkids, and moved 15 hours down I-10 to Beeville, Texas. And the only saving grace, he's right up the street from Tim Rainey. And guess who took him under his under his wing as his son, and helps him with everything. And he says, because you're daddy, you're my son. He says, you're my official son. And then when I get to go down there and visit my grandkids, I get to hang out with Tim Rainey and talk dentistry all night. So it's just great. But nobody in farming would sit there and say, well, you know, when you got termites, you got to wait till it's at least this big before you worry about it. I mean, Tim Rainey was teaching me to take microabrasion, blast that out. I never blasted it out once where it didn't go into the dentin, which is why I still don't even believe in sealants. I do not believe in sealants. I think the people that teach sealants are from another planet, because you're taking pits and fissures filled with Oreo cookies and crackers, and you're acid etching it, and you're trying to bond to it. Bertolotti's probably looking at you like, what the hell are you doing? And then when I spray out all that crud, I'm indenting every single time. So now I'm doing an occlusal composite. And if I do a occlusal composite in 5 years, 90% plus are still working. You do a sealant at the end of the first year, 40% are gone. And at the end of the second year, they're all gone. And every pediatric dentist lines up around the block 3 times to do more sealants. And then when you say sealants are dead, I only do preventative resin restoration occlusal composites, they think you're a quack. So where do you sit on the line? Are you sealants or preventative resin restorations?
I am on the line with Tim Rainey. Same coin, 2 sides. One side, you have minimally invasive preventive dentistry. The other side of the coin is when it's been screwed up and you have to go fix it and repair it. So the minimal side is taking air abrasion. I'm with Rainey on this. You go in and you clean out the decay. Now, a lot of times we cannot tell decay's in there. Our occlusal surfaces are deep and they come together, and you can't get down in there with your Explorer, but there's decay down inside there. So you use something like a diagonal dent, which I very much believe in, to find decay in its earliest stages. I can use that and say, there's nothing in there, but I get the diagram and say, no, there can't be. You open it up, there's decay in there. And you're right. Sealants are great for sealing decay in there. So I use a minimally invasive approach, clean out the decay, or you sealants, open it up, be sure there's nothing in there. And then I use Rainey's technique where you fill it with Fuji 9, a glass ionomer. It's a very good, that's what we did out in Belize. He got me one day and said, you want to learn how to do air abrasion? Come to Belize with me. So I went down with Rainey to Belize and learned to do that stuff. And within 30, 40 minutes, I knew everything there was about how to do air abrasion from Rainey. But I was there for a week to do sealants on kids and stuff like that, doing air abrasion. So in my opinion, biomedic dentistry is 2-sided coin. One side's minimally invasive preventive, doing air abrasion, cleaning things out, preventing things. As Tim will tell you, they have people down there they call Rainey's mouth, people who've done sealants on these young kids. They'll never have a cavity because they've been sealed up. The other side is once they put traditional dentistry, things get screwed up, then you have cavities and the cycle, call it death spiral. Small fillings become bigger fillings. You do it, gets bigger filling, and you end up tearing the tooth apart. So that's what I come in both sides. So I get the best of both worlds, minimally invasive preventive, and then biomedic on the other side.
But I have to correct you. You said 2 sides of the same tooth. Well, 2 sides of coin separated by what? The Rainey Ridge.
You got it.
Did I get you? Did I get you?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was a good one. I'm gosh, I'm gonna have to high five myself on that one. So Tim Rainey also blew my mind when I was a little kid out of dental school, and everybody knew the maxillary tooth was different because it had that maxillary oblique ridge. And Tim was the first guy who said, yeah, just like on the lower molar too. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about the one on the upper. And the minute he showed it to me one time, it's like, well, how was it there the whole time? And never even saw it. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
As Rainey says, that's why you have flat foreheads going, duh. It's simple. It's common sense when you see it and goes, I see it now.
Yeah, and Tim, my gosh, if I can't say enough great things about Tim. His son, Tim Rainey II, and his wife, Denise is Fritchie, just amazing people. But what I like about this, and I'm trying to teach young kids, is a lot of these older these techniques you take for granted, like you take dental implants for granted. You have no idea how many dentists were losing their licenses all through the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. I saw it out here where this guy was doing all these fixing all these dental cripples, and this was in the early 80s. And the first time one of his cases had failed, I think it was a subperiosteo or whatever, they took his license away. And he finished out his life just drinking in a trailer out there in Apache Junction. I just thought, because it was all new,
Yes.
like the systemic health is all new. When something's new, the first thing the humans are going to do is they're going to circle it in a wagon and then start shooting at it. And that's where you guys are today. I mean, you say oral systemic linked, or you say just biometric dentistry, and people just start getting weird on you. I mean, I don't know.
There's a difference between biomedic and biologic or holistic dentistry. And that's another thing that has to be distinguished in there. So biologic is more holistic. People have allergies and stuff like that. I don't follow that school. I do tooth conserving type restorations, which are more natural-like in form and function. We replace dentin with dentin substitutes, create the CEJ. We even put Rudos, Ribon in there to reinforce tooth to make it more like natural settings.
But as far as the holistic goes, what I'm going to say about that is it depends on what the patients mean, because all the dentists that don't like holistic, when they get high blood pressure, they don't want to take big pharma. They change their diet. They start exercising. They make changes. And when I hear patients say they want a holistic dentist, it's because they've lost trust in big pharma. They want to brush more, floss more, exercise, eat better. I mean, look at the New Year's resolutions. Every year it's they want to eat better, drink only water, breathe only air, eat plant, So I think a lot of those patients that are looking for a holistic dentist are actually just saying, I don't believe in treating everything with a pill. I want to do it more natural. And of course, natural doesn't make any sense, because when they say they want to do it natural, I say, well, do you mean natural like HIV, or natural like herpes, or do you mean like natural like a black hole sucking in the entire? What is this good thing that you call natural? So they don't know what they're talking about, but what they're trying to tell you is, I want to solve a problem beyond just taking a pill. Just like you, when I said about the vaccine. You're the first to say, I mean, the vaccine's a part of it, but it's a respiratory virus. You want to be healthier. You want to have a good immune system. You're not going to just sit there and smoke, drink, and stay drunk in the gutter waiting for your vaccine, right?
Right.
Right. I mean, so there's more to just taking a pill. But I also want to point out to the kids one thing. We know there's 2 million dentists on Earth. We know you're smart. We know you didn't get there unless you got A's in math, physics, chemistry, biology, reading comprehension. There's not a dumb dentist. They're smart, they're overtrained, they're highly technical. And my boys noticed this when they were 10. They go, Daddy, whenever I spend the night at one of your dentist friends, they have like hundreds of books. And then if they're not a dentist, they don't have any books. They don't even have a library. Then when they got a little older, they realized that libraries means you were a dentist, a physician, or a lawyer. And they still believe that to this day. They go, I can walk into someone's house and I know in 3 seconds if they're a dentist, physician, or lawyer, because they have a library shelf of books. And those are the readers. They're smart. So what really does you well is to not talk about what they all agree on. Look at what they don't agree on. And I'll give you another one. You already mentioned a sandwich technique, which I guarantee you just flew over the heads of every one of my homies in dental school. A quarter of our listeners are still in dental school, and they've never heard of this before. But when you go to Japan, Australia, New Zealand, they kind of like an active ingredient in their filling. And they use a lot of glass ionomer with a layer of composite on top. That's a sandwich, right? You got bread and peanut butter and jelly. So I want you to go back to the sandwich technique. First of all, do you agree that Japan, New Zealand, Australia does more glass ionomer than American Canadian dentist?
I really don't know a lot about Japan. I know they've got some great research over there at TMDU, Tokyo University. Some great research comes out from Fujiyama type stuff. They do great stuff over there in New Zealand. In Australia, they've got Graham Milicic is a great mentor also with Rainey, Milicic Rainey Ridge. Jeff Knight is a good fellow also. So I think every country has their own particular things they want to do. I really can't speak for what they do in their countries. I'm just knowledgeable about here.
Yeah, Graham Millsap, and I loved him. Oh my gosh, I just thought of the last joke that Graham told me, and I just realized I can't say it on the air. But anyway, I would love to say it on the air, but I can't. Gosh, I have so many questions from you. I'm just gonna keep going down the list of how is biometric dentistry associated with the oral systemic link? Or is there a connection or not really?
I really don't think Biomimetic can be researched with this oral systemic links. I think it's part of the same attitude that the mouth, as natural as it is the best thing there is, and you want to preserve it. It's probably an offshoot of that area right there. The more you know, the more you don't know, and that's why I did a lot of keen education. There's always somebody who knows more something about what you do. So I go learn something, find somebody good in that area, they become a mentor, you keep on going. That's how I learned from Rainey, learned from Dave Allman, keep asking questions, a curious mind. So I don't really think you can say Biomedic and is truly oral systemic link, but they are related some way or another.
So back to all the kids in dental kindergarten school who are about to graduate, it's not going to take them very long to find out that if you do 100 fillings, it's not because you saw 100 teeth that got its first cavity. You're going to find out really quick that probably 80% of your career is replacing older dentistry.
Yes.
Well, do you agree with that? What do you see that? Think that? What are your thoughts?
100%. 80% of what we as dentists do is replacing previously done dentistry. 80% replacing previously done dentistry. Why did it fail? Why did it fail? Each time you cut on a tooth, you weaken it. The reason it fails for two reasons mainly is materials you use and the techniques you use in replacing it. Dentists are great for buying stuff, getting stuff without finding out what it does. If you go to the internet, you check on just go, for example, your bonding agents. You open up the supply catalog, there's 65 different bonding agents in there. We take what we get in samples, say, why'd you use that? Because somebody gave it to me or somebody else used it. I had a supply rep come by a couple of years ago on a new bonding agent. I said, well, ask questions about it. I said, well, what can you get information about it? She said, yeah, here's the literature on it. I read their literature on that. It had nothing to do at all with their bonding agent. Nothing at all. Zero, zip, nada. They didn't expect the dentist to read the stuff. And so we as dentists take other people's word for it. You need to find stuff that's a gold standard. There are 4 bonding agents that are gold standards. You need to find that type of stuff that is the gold standard material. When you compare crap to crap, you still have crap. You compare crap to good stuff, the good stuff stands out as a gold standard. So that's the materials we use are sometimes bad. Also, we don't follow instructions correctly. Dan Fisher at Ultradent has got a great program where you go out and use his products. One day his granddaughter wanted to go with him, say, can I go with you? He said, yeah, you can go with me. And you do what they do. He takes dentists in there and he uses products and they test them out and say, okay, here's the binding strength of this product compared to that product. So his granddaughter did the same thing everybody else did. At the end of the day, they tested the products and compared the strengths. Her products had the highest bonds of anybody there. All the dentists, hers are stronger than any dentist. The reason is because she followed instructions. Very clear and simple. You follow instructions, it works. Most dentists go, well, I know what to do. I'll just put this on here and wipe it off and blow it. They don't follow instructions. So instructions are there for a reason. So it's materials and techniques are the reason why things fell that 80%. And then you have the usual suspects of people eating and bad hygiene. But I think a lot of times materials that we use put in there, we are the cause of that. And we did a death spiral is what it's called when they keep on going from smaller to bigger fillings and you end up losing the tooth.
And there's another thing that Dan Fisher taught me out there that just blew my mind, and that is the instructions say brush this on for 10 seconds, but they don't use a stopwatch. And then other people standing behind you with a stopwatch saying, okay, that was 4 seconds. And what he did to me the first time I went out there, I was in a class, And John Cake was in that class. So I'm a young kid out of school, and I'm all excited. I mean, that's John Cake at the end of the table, you know? And he sent us back to the lab, and he says, okay, I want you to do this bonding agent with extracted teeth, and you cut the teeth and everything. He says, now I want you to scrub on the stuff for 5 seconds, and then I want you to do it for 10 seconds like the instructions say. Well, one was useless, and the other one worked. And you're like, you know, if you're a scientist, you know, and it says 10 seconds, well, you should have a scientific tool that measures 10 seconds, not sitting there, you know, just, you know, I mean, they don't take it serious. And then the other thing they do, which is, I mean, you could almost build a case that dentists aren't humble people because, you know, I would go to 3MSB, or I go to Danville, or I go to Ivoclar, and you'd see like take 3M. There'd be like 60 people in white lab coats that all had doctorates in organic chemistry. And then some guy on the lecture circuit would say, well, yeah, I like the 3M bonding agent, but I like to mix it with this resin and this, that. And they're just like, are these guys completely out of their mind? I mean, when you're mixing and matching kits made by 3 different companies, and you don't have a PhD in organic chemistry because you went to this lecture and some cool dentist said, well, I prefer this, I prefer that. It's like, dude, I mean, stay in your lane. I mean,
Yes.
I was at Ivoclar one time, and the guy told me, he says, well, here's the deal. They gave us 5 years, $5 million to make this product. I think it was Odebrink was telling me about this. He goes, so we'll have 20, 30 PhDs, spend 5 years and $5 million, and we'll get the chemistry just perfect. And then it all goes to crap because some famous guy in a lecture circle will say, well, yeah, I use that for the composite, but I use this for the bonding agent, I use this for the primer, and they just completely change all the instructions, and the dentists just go along like sheep, and they just have ulcers and cough up blood clots reading Dental Town because their legal departments don't let them. The legal says if you want to reply to that, it's got to go through legal. And legal's legal's attitude in all these big companies is you don't stir shit because it makes it stink. You know what I mean? They just don't look at it and it'll go away, and it doesn't go away. Yes. And so I'm telling you, kids, my God, be humble. If 20 PhDs spend 5 years and $5 million and make any kit in dentistry, probably all the pieces go together. You know what I mean? You just can't start mixing and matching pieces, but that's what they do. Agree or disagree?
I agree. Ray Bertolotti, great chemist mind, he built a material called Bulk Easy. And talking with him, he said it's a 3-minute self-cure type stuff for buildups, and it's one that does not shrink down, cause problems. He said he put 3 minutes on there to tell people that to follow instructions for 3 minutes. He said, really, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes is what you really need, but I put 3 minutes because most dentists only listen half the time anyway. So it's a perfect example of not following instructions for a good product. So I agree with you.
And shout out to Ray Bertolotti. I think it's so cool and interesting. His wife used to be in the same Catholic nunnery order as my oldest sister.
Really?
Yeah, my oldest sister's cloistered Carmelite nun, and I don't know if Ray wants me to advertise that or his wife Mary, but I just think it's just cooler now that from the same tree there. But these are legends. David Alleman and Simon Delapere.
Yes.
Why are these guys important to you?
Dave was the guy that I went to first learn about composite resins. He was my first in my journey to learn good stuff. It was about 8 or 9, 10 years ago. I went out to Salt Lake City to take his course. At that time, he had 6 lessons. Dave was probably the father of biomedic dentistry. Ray is the father of adhesion in the United States. And Dave has more knowledge. He's had 10,000 hours on stationary stuff, so he knows what's going on. He can document it. When you take a study, he knows all the references in the study of who does what and cross-reference. He is a great mind. He's a great teacher. So I have learned from him as my personal mentor. I contact him, talk to him daily, or not daily, but on a regular basis. So he is a great man. He's a great teacher. So I think he is a very good inspiration. If you have any interest at all in biomedic dentistry, you need to check with Dave Allman and take his courses. Simone Delapere is from Italy, Sardinia, and he and Dave went together. They think a lot alike, and they had teaching center. They taught stuff. I went over to Sardinia a couple of times to learn from Simone, see his techniques. He is more of a bonding of more extreme measures. I think you can do stuff like that. He is a master. A typical dentist cannot take the time to do what Simone does, but it's just to show it can be done. I think something like an onlay or a 3/4 crown protects the base underneath, which is the important part. You do your biomimetic restoration, you do a good foundation on the base of it, and it doesn't matter what you put on top of it, whether it's a 3/4 crown, gold, composite, whatever, it's just a technique. So I think both of them have great knowledge in the field of biomedic dentistry, and they both speak truth and are good teachers, good instructors.
And you forgot his most important quality, a handsome bald man.
His what?
He's a handsome bald man.
Yeah, okay.
You forgot that part. That's isn't that what most of his claim to fame is? The handsome bald dude. And then so when they come out of school,
yes,
I hear this a lot, man. I hear it all the time. You know, I paid $400,000. I'm a doctor in dental surgery. I don't need to go to all those courses, and they're done. They're doctors now.
yes.
Talk to that kid.
Okay. You have to understand the purpose of dental schools is to get people out into the board, pass boards. That's what they teach in dental schools, is to pass boards. They don't teach current science technology unless you go someplace like USC where Pascal Mon teaches stuff out there. So a lot of stuff, biomedic dentistry, they don't even come close to it. They don't want to hear about it because it's not on the boards. It's when the public starts demanding biomedic dentistry that it'll become on the boards. And that's what I think the difference is, why you don't see a lot of information like that. So dental schools don't teach it because it's not on the boards.
The new grads are stressed, man. They got
Yes.
$400,000 of student loans. They a lot of them think that you know, it's all going to go like all the pharmacists went to Walgreens and CVS, and a lot of them are sitting here thinking, and they just graduated, and they're thinking, did I make a dumb mistake? What would you say to a 25-year-old dentist, and she's wondering if she made a bad mistake going into dentistry, and she's looking at you and me talking, saying, well, yeah, you are too old, dudes. You graduated in the golden years. You didn't graduate with $400,000 student loans and a DSO on every corner. What would you do? You think dentistry is a bad idea now, and it was maybe good when we were kids, but not now?
I think the times are changing with the DSOs and corporate dentistry coming in. It's more of a challenge to get started. There's always the room at the top for people that are good. You have to be able to distribute something that is good. As Jimmy Eubanks used to say, you have to deliver the steak before you sell the sizzle. You have to be able to deliver good quality dentistry and top-notch dentistry. I think that corporate dentistry, for people getting out of school, they have to go there because they cannot go out and start on their own unless they find a mentor who's willing to take them in and teach them the good stuff. Corporate dentistry is working for shareholders, in my opinion. There's a profit margin to be made, and they cut it down as low as possible so the shareholders get more money than the dentist does. So you're working for the shareholders and the corporation, not for yourself. There are a couple local dentists here, just out of school 2 years. They're working for a DSO type stuff. They have to produce $1 million a year, each one of them, for this practice. She lives with her mother because she can't afford to go out. So that she has, by constraints by that, they have to do this. So they didn't make a mistake. Dentistry can be a wonderful field if you do it right, but they have to get to a point where they say, I'm ready to go out on my own. So it's a challenge. It really is. I think there's a problem that biomedic dentistry, here's the saving grace. You have to differentiate yourself from other people. I think people will intuitively want to have biomedic tooth conserving dentistry once they find out what it is. And that's going to be the saving grace to get people out of the mill of fill and bill. There's a place that for everybody. Some people, that's all they want. It's just a patchwork dentistry. I feel bad for people that think they're going to a dentist and getting good quality work when they're getting patchwork stuff where they're under the gun to produce more stuff than they are doing quality. Corporate dentistry says you must produce. You must produce, not you have to do good stuff. I think people get stressed, they have to do that, and they look in the mirror and they know whether they're doing good work or not. Intuitively, they know inside themselves where they're doing the best they can. That's where the stress comes in dentistry. That's, I think, why suicide occurs a lot in dentistry, because they do a lot of stuff they have to do because it's not the best, but it's because they got to do it for production. And I think that's an unspoken something that should be addressed, is the conflict the dentists have of doing stuff they know is not right, but they can't look in the mirror at themselves at night and say, I've been doing the best I can.
And this goes back to even when you and I were young and out of school. I mean, we'll never forget, Reader's Digest, February of 1997, it says, how honest are dentists? And basically they did a study where this very good journalist, who a lot of people badmouth this guy. The guy who wrote this was William Eckenbarger, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, who wrote, basically he took study models and FMX to 30 different dentists and got 30 different treatment plans. So then a decade later, the National Institute of Dental Health said, well, maybe this guy, William Eckenbarger, won a Pulitzer Prize for his 3 Mile Island accident, but maybe it has nothing to do with dentistry. So they redid the study, and they did it to 100. They only had 2 similar treatment plans. The 2 guys who said you need nothing, and then treatment plan 3 to 100 was every one of them was different. So my question to you is, does a dentist have a mind of a scientist? I mean, you wouldn't get this in geometry. I mean, I can't lay you out a sine, a cosine, and tangent to 100 dentists and get 98 different answers. Yes. I mean, so does the dentist have a mind of a scientist, or is Reader's Digest correct that we're just ripping them off?
I think there are 3 things that go to a good dentist. The mind of a scientist, you have to understand the materials and techniques and how and why you do things. You have to have good hands of a surgeon and the eyes of an artist. Those 3 things go into a dentist, and you also have to have good magnification. I think there's a lot of variation in what people come up with. You see a problem, and I think a lot of dentists, and this comes to personal integrity. I will say it that way. If you have an opening, you're going to fill it for somebody to take care of it. I think it comes to integrity of the person, and whether they do what's right or best for the patient. You have to look inside and say, what would you want on yourself if that was your mouth, and take it that way. I think that's part of what the problem is. Sometimes students are so far in debt, or dentists so far in debt, they have to work for the corporation. They have to produce $50,000 a month, or if they don't, they have to produce $55,000 next month or $60,000 next month to make up for what they didn't make up. So it's under the gun. It's a problem. It really is. I think personal integrity is sometimes a question why there's such a variation in there.
And you know what the number one giveaway is that you're a bad dentist? Is when you retire and nobody knows it. That is not a good sign. I love what you say, man. A good dentist has a mind of a scientist, hands of a surgeon, and the eyes of an artist. And we need to add, and the ethics of a what? And the ethics
of a human being.
Nice.
With integrity. Integrity of treating people like you want to treat. It's not a hard thing to do. Treat people like you want to be treated, knowing what you know. They come to you because they trust you. If you get trust, they will come to you. And if you have a better mousetrap, they will come to you. People intuitively want to have less drilling. Nobody says, I'm going to get my tooth drilled today. They want to have conservative dentistry. And if you can break that chain, nobody says, I love the sound of a drill. I love napalm in the morning. They want to have conservative dentistry and save as much tooth as they can. People will seek you out if you do dentistry like that with ethics.
Nice. And you know, my back to the nunnery thing. My sister, when she became a nun, they put her on this project of transcribing old documents, and going back all the way to 500 AD, and so she can read every major religion, whether it be Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucius, all in their native words. I mean, it's crazy, yes. Crazy. She said the thing that blew my mind is when she told me that there's not a name of a person, a city, a place, a country, a town, a village that shows up in every major religious work except for one phrase, and that's the golden rule: treat other people like you want to be treated. She said that's the only thing that you can filter out of every religion. I mean, there's like 1,100 practice now, and you go back in time, there's like been 10,000 different named religions, but they pretty much all come from the same areas nice, but that she said that's the only thing they have in common. Just treat other people like you treat themselves. So if you work for a DSO and you're asking me, well, do you think I should work here if they're making me do this or that? And it's like, dude, don't ask me that question. Are you treating that patient like you would want to be treated? It's that simple and that clear. And if it's not, you need to run, not walk out of that building. And the minute you do things you don't like to do for money, there's a reason that 95% of prostitutes are heroin addicts because they hate their job. And
Yes.
and when dentists hate their job, they start drinking and they start drugging and they fall apart. And you never want to catch yourself doing things you don't like to do for money. It's just never, ever, ever a good idea. But back to dentistry. I'm just here to play devil's advocate. So I hope you're in good spirits and you're not going to go tell Tim Rainey, yeah, Howard attacked me for the whole hour.
Let her rip.
But they're all going to say, I know how my homies think. They're going to say, well, that dentistry, the reason 80% of it's replaced had nothing to do with me. That patient doesn't brush, doesn't floss, he grinds his teeth. It's always the patient's fault. So what would you say to that?
That is a major component, but you've been around long enough and you get patients come in and you take their chart out and goes, they need a restoration there. Well, who put that crappy thing in there? Goes, did I do that? Goes, no, somebody else did that. We always have doubts. There's failures in it. Stuff fails. Tires, you buy tires, you get 50,000 miles on them. They wear out. Your shoes wear out. Everything wears out. Teeth wear out. The best thing you have is your own natural teeth. So if you can break that cycle of wear by being conservative and reproducing as close to natural as possible, Biomimetic is scientifically proven. It's on some of the best minds in the world. And they come together and say, this is the best way of doing stuff. That's why I like biomedic dentistry. I know without a doubt I'm doing stuff based on the most current science that there is. Worldwide minds have come together from around the world and say, this is the way to do this. That's what I like biomedic dentistry. It's tooth conserving. It saves tooth structure. It's what I'd have in my mouth. Less dentistry is the best dentistry.
And I want to tell you something, an old dentist in St. Louis and in St. Joe, Missouri. It was the oldest dentist I ever seen with a patient. His name was George Rui, DDS, in St. Joe, Missouri. And I was a young kid. I was still in dental school. And I met this 92-year-old dentist that's seeing patients and didn't believe it and told my friend, I don't believe it. And sure enough, he was. And I said to him, young kid, I said, which teeth do you think lasts the longest? Because I was noticing some people lose back molars or which one. I said, which tooth lasts the longest? And he goes, well, that's easy. It's the one the dentist never touched. He goes, you touch it one time and it's a filling. And now it's weakened. Next time you see it, it's a bigger filling. And the next time you see it, it's a crown. And the next time you see it, it died and it's a root canal and a crown. Then the next time you see it, you extract. He says, rule number 1, don't ever touch the tooth. And I'm just like, yes. I thought I was going to dental school to learn how to touch teeth. And you just told me that every time I touch a tooth, it gets worse. What do you think of that statement from a 92-year-old dentist that practiced 70 years chairside?
Words of wisdom. The more we cut on a tooth, the more we screw it up. Rainey did a study that Pew study that said it costs about $6,000. You take a bird or a tooth, over the lifetime of that tooth, it's going to cost about $6,000 according to the Pew study. And it's true. You have an occlusal filling, you weaken the tooth, you cut the rainy ridges, the tooth now flexes and gives. You now have interproximal caries as a result of that, from occlusal effect caries is called. That's a decay that occurs in between the teeth because the tooth that flexes and gives. You've got the guts out of it, so now flexes and gives. That becomes MO or DO. There's a study where Pascal Monnier put a force on a tooth. See how much it flexed. Solid tooth would flex about 6.9 microns. Then he put an MO, DO slots in there, and it turns out 179 microns when you put an amalgam in there, it would flex a tooth. So the more you cut it, the more you weaken it, you defeat the inherent duty of the tooth that was made and divinely inspired, I'll say that, in structure. So the more we cut it down and weaken the tooth. So I think he is exactly right. You just touch a tooth, you screw it up, and unless you use good materials and good techniques to try and reproduce as close to natural as possible, the best thing you have is the own natural tooth the way it was made first time. It's divinely put together, incredibly good shape. It's made for a reason to last that long. So cutting it down is not a good thing.
There's just nothing conservative about it. There's just nothing conservative about it. It's just a death spiral. You start a death spiral, but I want to tell you, it's a death spiral. An occlusal turns into an MOD turns into a crown turns into a root canal. Gordon Christian showed me a study one time that 1/3 of all teeth that are crown need a molar root canal. I think it was within like 3 years. It was just something crazy. But I want to say something to another kid. One thing you can do just to start being more conservative, biometric, whatever you want to call it, is when you see an interproximal cavity on each side and you see an MOD, well, you don't have to go drilling through the rainy ridge on the lower and the maxillary ridge on the other. Do an MO and a DO, and it's actually more profitable because the insurance gives you more money for an MO and a DO than an MOD. And then, of course, the illiterate dentist across the street will say, yeah, well, he just does that so he can bill for more money. Well, then, okay, explain that to Pythagoras. The Pythagorean theory. Let's go back to Greece 2,500 years ago and ask if you could build a pyramid thinking like that.
It's actually, the more you save, the better off you are. And it's just common sense. The more you cut on a tooth, the more it's going to weaken it. And that's what we do when you have an $80,000 hammer, everything becomes a nail. If you've got a Cerac machine, you're going to cut the hell out of it, cut the tooth down, a little stub, and there's nothing left there to hold in there. And as Bertolotti says, the more aggressive you are, more likely you're going to have endodontics on that. So you want to break that by having good materials, good techniques, and do a good bio base, seal it up, and prevent those problems from occurring. And that's the beauty of biomedic dentistry. It prevents those problems from occurring based on science. It's conservative.
Do you ever worry though that these student loan indebtedness, $400,000 is going to make kids do? I mean, they're kind of it's kind of like it's like saying that you would never ever have an affair with Britney Spears, but on the other hand, she never jumped in your bed. You know what I mean? I mean, I can say I never had an affair with Britney, but I can also say that she never jumped in my bed, and I wouldn't want to make any bets on what would happen. I don't know what it would be like to be financially $400,000 in debt. You go buy a practice for $750. You're now looking at over $1 million in debt. Do you think that's going to make some dentists do things that they wouldn't have done if they didn't have all that debt?
I think you're absolutely correct. I think they go to school for 4 years or 5 years, 8 years. They get the degree and say, well, I paid my dues. And they're so far in debt, they can't do dentistry like they want to do, but they have to work for the corporation or somebody else that use them as a tool for them to make money for somebody else. And I think that causes stress. And I think that's part of the problem. A dentist I know here in town, he's an oral surgeon, an MD and DDS. He described, he said, you go in there and the wife says, well, honey, we deserve this, don't we? We need a new car. We need a new sound room. We need a new this. The kids need a new car. And he said, you described my life perfectly. I deserve it. My wife thinks I deserve it. And there's comes stress because you can't do that. You're living a lie. You got to have something that looks good because people judge you as a dentist. Say, well, you're supposed to have all the answers. You're supposed to be rich. You can't do it like that. You got to earn that. And I think that's a problem with dentistry, that a lot of students get so far in debt, they're promised a good life, but they go and take shortcuts, and that gets them in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous path to go in, and you see it right out of the gate, because when they come out of school and they're a teacher, and then they get a job teaching, and the next time they come into your office, you're like, so what's new in your role? Well, we got our house. And then they, you see, well, where is it? And it's always like a $225,000 or less house, 3 or 4 bedroom, 2 or 3 car garage, and they're going to stay there for 40 years. And then the kid who's all whining about he's coming out of dental school $400,000 in debt, and you say, well, dude, I know your dad. Go back home and live with your dad. Next time you see him, oh man, we just broke ground on a $750,000 custom estate in such and such custom estates, and then you're meeting him for lunch. It's like, hey, I got money, and I'm driving a 2004 Lexus SUV with 170,000 miles on, and he's in some like $95,000 brand new Beamer, and you're just like. You're just like, dude, you're only 2 years out of school and you got the dental disease of living above your means with money you don't have. And it's really, really sad because you see that guy 30 years later and he's still borrowing other people's money to maintain a lifestyle. He still, when that car's paid off, he goes gets a 5-year lease on another one. And then the craziest thing is they're like 50 years old and they're upgrading to a bigger house in Scottsdale on a 30-year mortgage. I'm like, dude, you're 50. You're going to do this till you're 80? And they don't even ever do the math that, you know, back before the federal government, I mean, the U.S. government in my lifetime from 1980 to 2020, like, when people say I don't like to talk politics, well, there's nothing to talk about. I mean, they've only had 11% of Americans have trusted the government from 1980 to 2020. I never hear anybody say anything good about the government, either party. I mean, it's like one robbed the bank, one drove the getaway car. But what they've done with $20 trillion of debt is they can't maintain interest rates with that. So they've ran interest rates to zero. So if I put $1 in the bank, I mean, for all of time, you put $1 in the bank, it'll give you a nickel a year until the end of time. And now it won't give you a penny because if they maintain a nickel a year for saved money, well, then the cost on servicing the debt would be so high they would be bankrupt. So then people don't put their money in savings. So they go gambling with it in the casino stock market. And we have all these bubbles and Bitcoin, all this crazy stuff, all because the U.S. government debt all through history. You always want to be on the side of the superpower. Like when you were in the Roman Empire, you knew all the value was held in gold and silver. So if you held gold, you did very, very, very well. Well, right now, when the 20 largest democracies on earth have $40 trillion in debt, you know paper is useless. Even the Federal Reserve says, well, our goal is 2% inflation a year. It's like, dude, but you're not even paying 1% interest. So you're slowly destroying the whole economy, the whole currency, the whole everything. And if you raise your hand and call them out on them, you're like, oh, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. You just need to go along with everybody, Howard. They all got your best intentions. I mean, it's crazy. So, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, I thought governments could only add $1 trillion of debt a year. Hell, they added 4 this year. It is not going to be pretty when you're sitting there with all these debts piled up in homes and vacation homes and boats. And why would a dentist need a boat? I mean, how can you not get a friend with a boat? All you have to do is show up. If it floats, flies, or whatever, you don't own it. I mean, you don't own it. And Dennis, I wish you would learn how to be live below your means and be able to save 10 cents of every dollar you make before you even become a good dentist. I'd rather you just say, okay, I'm going to not take any dental continuing ed until I get my financial house in order and then go take it. Because, dude, I know what a financially stressed out dentist looks like because I got to see what happened to him during the Lehman Brothers day back in August, August 15, 2007, Y2K. And we got another one coming around the corner. I mean, we were talking about this bubble before the coronavirus. Warren Buffett had not invested $1. He was sitting on $145 billion in cash. He said, I don't see any value. Right now, Tesla is worth more. Its market cap is worth more than every other car company known to man. Ford, GM, Chrysler, Honda, Lexus, Mercedes, Volvo. Are you out of your freaking mind? If that was true, then you should see more Teslas driving around your neighborhood than you see Fords and Chevys and Buicks. I don't know. You're in Tennessee. Do you see more Ford, Chevys, and Chryslers, or does everyone have a Tesla?
Very, very, very few Teslas, and usually those are people from out of town.
Yeah, so I mean, it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier, and that's what motivates me to do this show,
Yes.
to get a bunch of old geezers like me and you to get on this show and tell these kids it's not what you think it is, man. You're gonna have to work hard, you're gonna have to hustle, you're gonna have
Yes.
to take 100 hours of continuing education every year, so you can take them online on Dentaltown for $36 as opposed to what you'll do. You'll get in an airplane, fly across the country, stay in a resort, drop $3,000 on a weekend. Are you out of your mind? The course is $36. And one of the best implantologists I know in my backyard, you know what he did every night? He'd come home from work, he'd get on YouTube, he'd enter dental implant surgery, and he'd just watch an hour of dental implant surgeries that somebody posted for free on YouTube. And then when I'm lecturing in other countries, I mean, I'm Cambodia, Malaysia, I find dentists in every one of those countries that I'd let work on me. And I said to this girl in Somalia, I said, well, where did you learn endo? And she goes, well, God, all you got to do is get on YouTube and put in endodontics, and you can see like 8 million hours of endodontic surgery by the biggest names in the world. She said, she said, I am so humbled by how all these dental colleagues share all this information for free. Like you're doing this show for free.
Yes.
People enter on YouTube for free. And dentistry is really cool. But we can't help you if you have that industrial disease and you can't like yourself unless you're driving a Range Rover. I mean, dude, you should be able to like yourself back when you were on that bicycle with 19-inch rims. I'll never forget, I had the coolest bicycle in the world because it was the first one that I saw where you could spin the handlebar around. You know, you could spin it all the way around. I mean, I thought I was walking on the moon. But how do you coach a dentist to live below their means?
That's a good question. I think it's a lifestyle issue. You really can't coach them. You just tell them. And I think you have to find mentors, somebody that's already done what you want to do, and then go to those mentors and find out how they did it. Success leaves clues. It's better to copy genius than it is to create mediocrity. I think so many times we try and do stuff on our own. We create it so we think we're doing the best we can, but when we find somebody that's done it before, they leave clues and they're glad to share it with you. So I think it's good you find good mentors that have done it before. You listen to them, and like you find Dr. Almond, good techniques. That's what you need to do, is find good people that you can trust and done what you want to do. The lifestyle, if you went in it for the money, you're going to be sadly disappointed because it's going to be tough. You got to do it because you enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's where I'm so glad what I did, because it just broke my dad's heart that I didn't follow him into Sonic Drive-In. And when I told him that, you know, at the time I thought it was going to be 8 years to be a dentist, and he's like, Howard, by the time 8 years, you could have had 2 or 3 Sonics. And sure enough, his other partners, their sons, their sons did that. But I just didn't want to make foot-long chili cheese dogs my whole life. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I still eat a Sonic. I still think a foot-long chili cheese dog, tater tots, and a chocolate malt, or my gosh, I come from the time where it still affects me to this day. When I go to a restaurant, it doesn't have a picture of the food on the menu. I know I'm overpaying for crappy food. You know, you walk into Sonic or the IHOP, there's pictures of everything there is to eat. And it's the best food. It's faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost. I love that stuff. But my gosh, man, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to hustle. And I would rather you eat at Sonic than the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Yes.
I would rather you find a friend with a boat that you show up with a case of beer than go buy a damn boat. I mean, I just don't know. I don't even know what you're doing with all those rooms house. Half of my friends that live in mansions, I mean, I can name you 3 right now. Dentists in mansions in Phoenix that no one's gone upstairs.
Empty.
I mean, that's where the kids used to be. There's like 5 bedrooms up there. And it's like, you go up there, you can just tell it's like old and, like it's not lived in. I mean, yeah, I got out of my McMansion, and, I thought to myself, the last thing I want to be doing in these times is holding, all that money in a damn fancy house. And the reason I'm not scaremongering or any of that stuff, because I graduated in high school in 80. That was the worst economy I ever seen. 21% interest rates, double-digit unemployment, inflation. And then I graduated May 11, and October was Black Monday. The Monday's so bad, it'll be forever known as Black Monday. And I lived through that. And then the Y2K, I lived through that. Lehman's Brothers. So I've lived through 4 crashes. So it's not like I'm fear-mongering because I'm not afraid of it. I've lived through 4 of them, and I really don't care. All I'm trying to do is tell the youngins that they better keep their eyes wide open because they, I don't know what they're listening to. I have no idea what they're smoking, but, things can go from good to bad rapidly, and they bounce back because the majority of humans are good. That's why I never bet against humanity, because I know 1% are murders and robbers and every horrible crime known to man. But I know 95% of humans are good people. And, so I'm not ever betting against humans. I'm never betting against America. But I'll bet you this. If you live below your means, you work hard and you hustle, and you take 100 hours of CEs, and you listen to people like Dr. James David Erpenbach in Knoxville, Tennessee, your life will be a lot easier.
It makes sense. You got to live within your means. You're exactly right, Howard. I think that's the problem. People live above their means. They buy stuff to impress other people, but they're not impressing themselves. They're living a lie, and it's all for show. So you got to have a lick of sense and common sense, and that starts the beginning.
Absolutely. True words.
Find a good mentor. Find something that distinguishes you from other dentists. That's the real key. What will distinguish you from other dentists? And biomedic dentists will distinguish you from other dentists, because people will search you out because this is what they inherently want, is less invasive stuff. They want to save their tooth structure rather than cutting it down. People want that.
Okay. And on that note, thank you so much for, at the end of your day, when any normal dentist would want to go home and turn on ESPN or have some dinner, and you stayed after work to talk to my homies for an hour. We went well over an hour. Thank you so much, James, for your time, your commitment to dentistry, and all the advice you shared with all the young kids in dental school today.
It's been my pleasure. I'm glad to share the knowledge. The more we share, the better we're going to be. We're all on a journey. We want to get the same place, good quality care for our patients. And this is one step along the way, sharing the knowledge. So thank you for this forum so people can get this knowledge.
Well, thank you, man. And it's all free. Because people like you come on the show for free. And, I don't have to pay your honorarium. That's why this show's good, because I don't have any honorariums. It's just, you know what it reminds me of? You know where I get this from? Remember when we were little, that 1 out of 10 of your farmer friends' dad had the ham radio in the barn, and, sun-ups at like 5 a.m. and it gets dark about 7. And when the lights are out on the farm, there's nothing to do. But after supper, about 1 in 10 of those old men would walk out in that ham radio. So when people say like, well, social media was invented by Facebook no, social media was a ham radio 100 years before that. And they would sit out there, and of course they'd tell everybody that, they were getting good information about when to plant wheat and when to harvest. And it was all for knowledge. That's why I'm doing this, all for knowledge. And then they'd sit out there and talk about Muhammad Ali and the Yankees and every baseball game. And it's like, I'd sit there and think, okay, I still haven't heard anything about farming yet, but it would come,
Hang in there.
Yeah. It's like Dentaltown. Obviously the most popular thread is the political forums. My God, there's 100 posts in the political forums for every one on endodontics, but whatever. But they're having fun, and they're having fun with their peers, and dentistry's great. People are great. Work hard, hustle, live below your means. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me very much.